Hi lads, welcome back to a brand new video on this channel. Today I am reacting to my 2025-26 Premier League predictions. And as you might be able to see, I've got the Premier League table as things finished right underneath my webcam, and to the left or to the right of me there is a video which I'll be reacting to. It is my video. I've put it into 125 speed because otherwise I'll be here all afternoon. Yeah, let's get into it.
At number 20, I've decided to go with Burnley. I'm really sorry, Clarence fans. The thing is, Burnley just haven't impressed me at all this summer. Kyle Walker is an okay signing, a leadership figure, I suppose. You've kept hold of Maxime Estève, but Trafford has gone to City now. CJ Egan-Riley has gone to Marseille. Brownhill has left the club, so there's a lot of holes in that strong squad, which got you second in the league last season.
So, kind of understandable. I thought Burnley had the worst squad in the division. I think that's kind of proven to be the case. If Wolves didn't have the horrendous start they did, I think Burnley might have very well finished rock bottom, which might not seem like a very crazy prediction, but Burnley have actually since the end of the 19th century never finished bottom of any division. So to avoid that on the last game week is pretty good for them, I suppose. But they have gone down just like I predicted, and pretty much for the reasons I predicted. So I'll take this one as a win.
In at number 19, and immediately we have one of my first controversial picks. It's Wolves. And
Okay.
Wolves normally is a team which shouldn't or won't be in any relegation conversations. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you. In my estimation,
Just realized, by the way, I said I would put it in 120 and I just haven't.
the owners
There we go.
lack the ambition to keep their club afloat because they simply invest in the squad when it's absolutely necessary to invest in the squad, and when it turns out they are struggling massively in the league, they panic and they buy just about enough to keep themselves up in the league in January. But I feel that that strategy can't keep on working forever. I see a lot of strong squads down at the bottom of the table as well as at the top end, so you're going to have to be incredibly competitive to stay in the league this season, in my opinion. Hence why I've decided to go with Wolves in at number 19, even though I quite like their midfield. I just think lots of inexperience, no real star quality to turn the game around. 19th it is.
So I've actually turned around Wolves and Burnley, which is annoying, but also quite fine, because I think my reasoning for putting Wolves 19th is pretty solid. I think the board always seem to rest on their laurels, which eventually does just result in relegation. It's kind of inevitable. I think their most exciting signings, like Fer Lopez or John Arias, both already left in January, so they did not work at all. Players like Munetsi, Agbadou left as well, so they kind of already made peace with the fact that they were down in January, and they recruited pretty smartly for next season, signing players like Adam Armstrong, who are championship cheat codes almost. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Wolves come straight back up. But 19th and Burnley 20th, I think that's a pretty okay start to this prediction video.
At number 18, let's not waste too much time on this. It's Sunderland. Yes, you say Sunderland would stay up this season, but no. They've had a pretty impressive window so far. Obviously, Granit Xhaka is a mind-blowing signing that's coming from a Newcastle fan. I have no idea how you managed to get that one over the line, but let's have it right. Granit Xhaka is a passing midfielder, not a destroyer. And the centre-backs have to be upgraded as well, because right now it's Bellard and O'Neill, which is championship quality at best. I think one of them can rotate in and out of the starting 11 during this Premier League season, but if you're starting week in, week out with both at centre-back, you're going to get run over by nearly everybody apart from maybe Burnley in this season. So I'm quite confident Sunderland will still invest in those positions, but as things stand right now, and as their squad is right now, and even with those additions, in my opinion, I think they're still going down. But like Ipswich did last season, they are setting themselves up to come right back up and be competitive yet again and maybe stay in the league long term.
So this is the first massive L. I am a whopping 11 positions out of my Sunderland prediction. I mean, look, this isn't the channel to wax lyrical about them. They've had an unbelievable season. Let's have it right. Not much to add. I was completely wrong by suggesting that their lack of an out and out number 6 would come back to bite them, because they've been, if anything, defensively solid nearly all season, which has mostly kept them in the league. They'll be playing Europa League football next season. Yeah, this is a bad one. This is a really bad one for me.
In at number 17, of course, I had to say Leeds. I can't predict all 3 promoted clubs to go down for the 3rd season in a row. That would be so devastating for the league. And I don't think it's going to happen this season. I think Leeds are doing some very smart business. Bornau looks like a great signing. Mecha, squad depth. Anton Stak looks like a really, really good signing, as well as our boy Sean Longstaff, who is just backs of Premier League potential.
Hey, that Anton Stak shout?
And also the engine and the physicality to work at this level. So I think they've deepened out the squad incredibly well, kept all their names together. Think of Joe Rodon, Will Gnonto, guys who were there last time they were in the Premier League. They are still there, got a lot more experience under their belt, and 2 back-to-back 85 plus point seasons for Leeds. So I think the confidence will be high as well. 17.
So I'm not too unhappy about my Leeds predictions. 17th in the league, they eventually ended up finishing 14th, which is mightily impressive by them. And I think Daniel Farke needs to have a lot of credit for the season he's had. It started off really rough with Leeds, really very strongly amongst that relegation battle. And then around about the end of November, the starting of December, Daniel Farkas started to change towards a more pragmatic approach towards football games, switched to a 5 at the back with 2 strikers up top. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is probably the signing of the season, as we discussed on the toonTALK podcast on Monday. I mean, to get so many goals out of a free transfer to help you stay in the league is absolutely invaluable, and Leeds have actually performed even better than I thought they would. But I'm still not too mad about this prediction. So far, none right. But out of the first 4, I'd say there's only 1 real stinker. So let's move on with that trajectory, I hope.
In at number 16, a team who everybody was really, really hot on at the end of last summer. Now that seemed to have died down, as well as their not maybe necessarily ambition, but free spending power has died down. I'm talking about West Ham. West Ham have the quality to be at least a mid-table team. Look at the likes of Paqueta. Obviously, Mr. West Ham, Jared Bowen, Wan-Bissaka is pretty great in my opinion. They've just signed our boy Callum Wilson, so that's some experience up top. But reports are they have to sell in order to sign, mostly due to the kind of summer they did have last summer. So a lot of question marks around this squad and a lot of eyes on Thomas Frank this season.
Yeah, so I said it at the end as well, and thankfully I corrected myself in the post-edit. But it is Graham Potter, not Thomas Frank, who was going to have a lot of pressure on him. And that is actually the most accurate thing I said in that entire spiel about West Ham, because I think Graham Potter is pretty much the reason they went down in the first place. I think he destroyed the morale and the confidence of that squad completely. I think he just didn't suit West Ham's way of playing at all. The way he wanted to play football just didn't suit the squad, and he didn't show any adaptability towards the players he had at his disposal. And I think Nuno actually since January had them competitive, but the fact that such a good manager had needed such a long time to get West Ham anywhere close to competitiveness, I think very much falls at the feet of Graham Potter, and he's eventually ended up getting them relegated, which is quite astonishing, to be honest. I think the London Stadium is now the largest stadium ever to host championship football. It overtakes St. James's Park in that regard, so that's pretty positive for us. But other than that, yeah, if there's any Hammers fans listening to this, let me know. This relegation, it's on Potter, isn't it?
In at number 15, I've decided to go with Brentford. Brentford are one of those.
That's low. That's pretty low. I think they finished 9th. That's pretty low.
Obviously, Thomas Frank is a huge loss. Probably, or most definitely, even a bigger a loss than Nørgaard was, than Mbuemo is, than most likely Wisa will be. I think Thomas Frank...
a bigger loss than Brian Mbuemo. That didn't age too well.
Is the one irreplaceable guy in this team, but they haven't really replaced him. They've brought in someone who's worked under him, knows what Thomas Frank was doing with this team in Keith Andrews. Okay, Andrews does not have any Premier League experience at all, which is a worry, and it is even a problem in my opinion. But I do just back Brentford to be alright. I don't think they are going to rip up any trees this season, but I definitely don't think they will be relegated. So I'm saying Brentford 15th and Keith Andrews doing a solid job, shall we say.
I mean, on Keith Andrews, I said he would do a solid job. He's done an absolutely magnificent job. Getting Brentford into 9th after the summer they had. Again, not massive summer outlays. I expect that to be a little bit different this summer because they just missed out on the Conference League by 1 position. So they will back themselves to get in there next season, especially given the fact that Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Scum will all have European football to contend with. But what a season that Keith Andrews has had, to have your first season in Premier League football and to not be anywhere near the relegation picture is absolutely fantastic. And Igor Thiago, I mean, to replace the output of Wissa and Mboemo pretty much all by yourself is genuinely extraordinary. What a season for Brentford. I'm pretty off with that one. I'd say, I mean, I don't have any 100% accurate prediction so far. We're a quarter of the way in. But what we do have is one absolute stinker, 4 decent ones, and 1 which is questionable, and that's the Brentford one.
Now, I think most of that table, or most of that part of the table, will include around and about the same teams.
Nope. Nope.
This is where it gets tough, however. This is where it gets really, really competitive. My number 14, I decided to go with Nottingham Forest. Now, this is a controversial because we are talking about that not only all the way for
here we are
last season and competed right until the very end, but have managed to qualify themselves for Conference League football.
Oh god. I thought they had finished 14th, but they finished 16th. They did even worse than I thought they would. Oh, I was already reeling off in celebration to celebrate my first correct pick, and it turns out to be devastatingly wrong. Okay. I am quite proud still of this prediction. Let's hear at my thoughts.
But they massively overperformed last season, especially the likes of Chris Wood. Massively overperformed. I don't think he's going to be bad by any means, but he won't.
He was injured.
The overperformance he did last season. A lot of what Forest will be doing this season will be reverting back to the mean, in my opinion, which probably is around and about mid-table when it comes to their finish. But what I think is going to drag them down a little bit further down the table is getting far into that Conference League. Because let's be honest, Nottingham Forest has Conference League. It is a competition which any Premier League side that qualifies for.
At this moment in time, Nottingham Forest were still playing Conference League football, and Crystal Palace would still be playing Europa League football because of winning the FA Cup and then afterwards the whole Lyon Crystal Palace thing. Very interesting. Maybe if Nottingham Forest were promoted to the Europa League, I would have actually dropped them 2 places. I also think if Nuno Espirito Santo would have stayed on as their manager, I think they would have ended higher than 16th, maybe even higher than 14th. At the end of the day, they have been in a relegation scrap for a large part of the season. Now that European football is gone, they don't have any sort of Europe next season. They should absolutely focus on re-establishing themselves as a mid-table side that doesn't necessarily come into the question when we're talking about the relegation picture for next season, because that's where Nottingham Forest ultimately want to be right now. Not necessarily pushing for European competitions, but just safe and steady.
13. Everton fans, how are you feeling about this season? The transfer window has...
Now we can finally wheel off in celebration.
...to their new stadium, and that came with a lot of ambition and a lot of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I think Barry is an incredible signing for them. He's 64, he's young, strong, fast. I think
He's
he has
not
all
bad.
the attributes to succeed in the Premier League, but they've not brought him in fast enough. They haven't been able to bet any of the new signings apart from Barry and Aznu, I think it is, the left back from Bayern, which they signed. Apart from them, they haven't really got any players who could have helped them through pre-season, because David Moyes openly talked about them just kind of having to sputter through these pre-season games because they don't really have the squad to compete with those. And that squad is still going to have to be deepened out because a lot of players have left Everton on a free. Listen, the moves with Dibbling, Grealish, Fofana, Kubo, they're all exciting, but you just need players. You just need a couple of players and then maybe deepen out that talent depth in your squad.
So interesting. I've predicted their placing spot on, which is fantastic. First 100% correct prediction. And I also mentioned the fact that they didn't have the greatest pre-seasons and it was all really rushed. And I think that actually translated towards the season because Everton have built a really strong group of players. I think signings like Dibbling will have a lot more to show next season. Barry, same thing. But Dewsbury Hall has been absolutely outstanding for them this season. Just the same with James Garner. Yes, he was already there, but still outstanding player for them. Defense is always solid. But that preseason has meant that I think inconsistencies have crept into their performances this season, especially towards the back end of the season, which has ultimately meant they finished outside of the European places. So, really, I'm really glad for myself that they finished 13th because now I have my first bang on prediction. But I'm also quite sad for Everton fans because this season did have the potential for more.
In 12th position, I've decided to put Fulham. Well, Fulham haven't really done anything this summer, but that also means they haven't really sold anyone of significance this summer. They are now being linked with a massive money move for the Brazilian winger Kevin, which I think could be a really
Yeah, they signed him.
to this Fulham side, bringing in someone
exciting.
with a lot of creativity, with a lot of
Not
skill.
much more.
So you give another dimension to that attack. I'm a really big fan of it. Apart from that, apparently Muniz is going to be the starting striker and Raul is going to be his backup for the coming season. I think that kind of makes sense given the age of both players.
It was the other way
Bassey
around.
is still there, Iwobi is still there, Robinson is still there. I think they are going to have a great season yet again. Unfortunately, I don't think they will push into the top 10 because that's going to be a bit more competitive than it is or was last season. And they just haven't really brought in enough players to kick themselves on, especially in the middle of the park, in my opinion. But Kevin, great signing. Fulham will be absolutely fine. 12 in the league. Okay season.
Now this one is annoying because pretty much everything I say about Fulham is spot on. They did not bring up or bring in enough of reinforcements to really kick on and push for European places. So mid-table, but not necessarily in any sort of trouble. The only reason they have not finished exactly in the spot that I would say they would finish in is because we are there. It's because Newcastle finished there, not Fulham. If only we had got our shit together a tiny little bit more this season, I would have back-to-back bang-on predictions. But no!
In at number 11, I decided to go with Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth will be sad that they got back-to-back seasons where they were for the top half finish but didn't get there in the end.
Let's listen.
But come on, Bournemouth, you've lost pretty much your entire defense. Kepa has now gone to Arsenal, Zabani is off to PSG, Dean Haase has now gone to Real Madrid. So that's a lot of change. Kerkez to Liverpool, so that's a lot of change in this back line. Senesi is still there, Trefer has come in, which is a signing I really like. Petrovic has come in, which is also a signing I really like, but they still have to Zabani. They have been linked with Diakite and probably will get him over the line, which is a fantastic signing again. I would bring in one more centre back to compete with Senesi and Diakite, but it is great to see them replacing that defense adequately. And I also think Tyler Adams will have a massive role to play for Bournemouth in the coming season, especially in the way they break teams down right before their defense and set up a counter-attack straight away because Tyler Adams has the physical capabilities for doing so. So yeah, Andoni Iraola is still there. Great manager. I'm looking forward to see Bournemouth play next season yet again.
So, again, what I'm saying about Bournemouth is not too wrong. They sold their entire defense, but replaced them with some pretty interesting players. I mean, who could have predicted that James Hill would turn out to be one of the answers to replacing that entire back line, but he's had a pretty great season as well. I think on Tyler Adams, he had a great first half of the season, but then got injured. I think Alex Scott has made massive strides in that Bournemouth midfield. But I'm gonna call it way off as well, because I said, come on, Bournemouth fans, you need to be happy with this. A lot of people tip Bournemouth to be fighting relegation, which I just did not believe for a moment, especially with someone like Andoni Iraola at the helm. But they finished sixth, five spots off of where I put them. So I am inclined to say another stinker on my behalf, which makes it 1 perfect prediction, 3 stinkers so far.
Into the top 10, and our first admission, which is the number 10 obviously, has got to be Crystal Palace. Congratulations on lifting the community shield. Crystal Palace players, Crystal Palace fans.
15th
performance against Liverpool, showing everybody. People probably have been a bit too afraid of Liverpool over the summer. And, I mean, following up the first trophy of your history with a straightaway second one, yeah, that's just great.
And a third one yesterday night.
Oliver Glasner is a really exciting manager in my opinion. If he makes the season through with Crystal Palace, maybe 10th even is a bit of a low estimation. But again, I'm looking at the competitiveness of the other teams in the league. I think Crystal Palace probably will still lose Margehi, maybe even Eze to Arsenal. That rumor isn't going away anytime soon. I can see that happening like maybe a couple of days before deadline day, with Palace having to scramble to get in a replacement.
Which was Jeremy Pino.
Is really good squad. Mateta is great, Sarri is great, Adam Morton is absolutely unbelievable. 10th place finish, and back-to-back seasons where they break their 40 to 50 points curse. No.
So I'll just give this as a stinker as well, because again I'm 5 spaces out at least, so I can't really do anything else than give a stinker. So that's 4 stinkers now. But I did say some true stuff about the Palace squad. Oliver Glasner stayed the entire season and they did not finish higher than 10th. They finished 15th, so that wasn't true. But Adam Morton, still brilliant. Mateta and Sarr, I mean Sarr, especially towards the latter half of the season, has really come into his own and become maybe even Crystal Palace's most important player. Lacroix I really like. I think JD Camvo has looked really good since Margehi has left. So, will Crystal Palace kick on? Probably not. I got dragged away with the flow when it comes to believing that Palace finally left that mid-table curse behind them. They just finished comfortably within the 40 to 50 points marker yet again. And Oliver Glasner is now going to leave the club, but they have been linked with Andoni Iraola, which would be an insane appointment in my opinion. And because yesterday they won the Conference League, for which congratulations Crystal Palace fans, they're going to have another season of European football in the Europa League. So really impressive for them. But still, I overestimated them by saying they would finish 10th in the league. I mean, let's be honest, they kind of sacked off the league to focus on the Conference League as soon as they knew they were safe.
Number 9, one of the biggest jumps up when it comes to my table for the coming season and how the table did end last season. I've gone with Man United, and I'm gonna be honest. If I did record this video 1 or 2 weeks ago, Man United would have probably been lower.
Lower.
Quite shameful for a club with the stature and the size of Manchester United, but apart from that, I think it's a pretty realistic shout, because there are a lot of weaknesses in this team and they haven't really addressed any of them. At this moment in time, Manchester United have spent 200 million on their attack, which, if you look at last season and their lack of goals scored, looks like something they should have done, but I think Højlund didn't necessarily have to be replaced. He needed someone with a lot more experience from whom he can learn.
I mean,
from that, you needed these wing fielders, like for example an Eberiche Eze, who can play in the number 10, but also can drift out to wider areas.
Why? Why?
I think
That I
both
don't
Cunha
necessarily.
and
Oh,
Mbeumo
I'm
really
gonna.
fit that
Okay.
mold, along with the fact that both Mbeumo and Cunha are two players to overperform their XG the most last season in the Premier League, and the fact that Cunha walked the most out of any player in the league last season.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not too happy about having mentioned those stats because, yes, they are true. Cunha was the player who walked most last season, but I think that is too lazy of an analysis on my behalf. I think both Cunha and Mbeumo have had really, really decent seasons. Mbeumo probably the first half, Cunha the second half of the season. But what's more important is you can see how much they care about playing for Manchester United, how much they care about Manchester United doing well as a football club. And it has been a really, really long time since I've seen players who care so much about that club. So it's a really revitalized Manchester United team. And I think those attackers, especially Cunha and Mbeumo, I'm not necessarily too sold on Šeško. Not that I doubt that he's a good player, but I think, like I said, could you just have kept Højlund around, signed someone like Tony for 25 million, and have them rotate with one another and have the same result? Maybe. But overall, very wrong on Manchester United. Very, very, very wrong. So that makes it stinker number 6.
Now, those can be misleading stats because some people will just throw them in your face and have you sit with it, whereas, I mean, if you're Matheus Cunha and you're the guy at Wolves, it's not necessarily strange to run a bit less.
Okay, so I did give some nuance.
Instructions to work harder, to run more. Who's to say he can't do that? My problem is more so in the fact that Man United have now spent 200 million in attack, but have not fixed any of their other problems in the squad. And you didn't finish last season in 15th position just because your attack. The midfield is still a massive problem. They have now been linked with Carlos Baleba, which is exactly the kind of player they should be looking for. But I don't think that's realistic for this summer. Partly due to the fact that you have already spent 200 million in positions you didn't really need. Your best player, Bruno Fernandes, is now going to have to move one line back because you have 3 new massively expensive attackers who have to...
Yeah, so again, in a Ruben Amorim system, this was all true. Bruno had to move back one space. Kobe did eventually sit on the bench for pretty much the entire Ruben Amorim spell. And you had those 3 expensive attackers running in front of Bruno and Casemiro in that double pivot, which created chaos both for the opponent as well as for Manchester United. So if Amorim would have stayed on, which let's be honest here, Radcliffe actually said that Amorim would be given the entire length of his contract and would not be sacked before sacking him. So if Amorim would have stayed, I think this prediction might have actually come true, but he didn't, so this prediction didn't either.
Play, meaning Bruno Fernandes is one of your 2 players in the double pivot, and I don't think the player you are looking for who can partner Bruno Fernandes in a double pivot in a Ruben Amorim system exists. I don't think that guy is a real player.
Me neither.
You have to be looking for someone who is comfortable with picking the ball up from deep, who can do all the defensive... You are basically looking for a Rodri extreme, and not only won't Man United be able to sign someone who is a Rodri extreme, who is that guy?
Who the fuck is that guy?
Don't mind me laughing at my own joke. Completely forgot I put that one in there. Fantastic.
Simply doesn't exist. So Bruno Fernandes in the double pivot, I think that only works in the Liga NOS or the Portuguese league. So Ruben Amorim is probably going to have to do some tactical tweaking to make this team work. I saw that Xabi Alonso doing very interesting stuff with Real Madrid, where Tchouaméni was playing in a back 3, but in possession moved up into the midfield, meaning they played with a back 4 and 3 midfielders again. I think something like that could maybe work for Manchester United, but as things stand right now, people are just going to run through their midfield yet again, just like they did last season.
Yeah, so all in all, I was spot on about Amorim's United, but Carrick came in and kind of neglected that entire prediction, which is part of the course, I suppose, when it comes to prediction videos, especially when you're predicting something at the beginning of the season and reacting to something at the end of the season. It is what it is. Another stinker, so that's 5-1 as we speak. This is not going well.
8th position. My prediction for 8th is Aston Villa. Now, Villa.
Oh, what am I doing wrong? So Villa ended up finishing 4th, which means 4 positions out. I'm not. Yeah, I'm counting this as a stinker as well.
You have to admit, your squad is weaker, a lot weaker than it was at the end of last season. You haven't really
Didn't
sold
matter.
any players, but a lot of the big name players or important players towards a latter end of the season have gone. They have left because they were only on loan, and I mean, for the likes of Rashford, Asensio, Disasi, you've chosen to not sign.
Disasi. I said massive players that won't be there because they were only on loan, and I mentioned Disasi.
Is absolutely understandable. Asensio, I probably would have signed on a permanent, but Rashford's wages just aren't realistic for a club like Aston Villa. And then it's a smart thing to walk away from a deal like that. Evan Gissan is a fine signing. I think this Aston Villa squad will most likely have all of their focus on winning the Europa League and getting back into
Which
the
they did.
League via that back door.
I mean, they didn't even need the back door, but they did one.
Absolute expert when it comes to the champions at the Europa League. So I do think there's a big chance Aston Villa win the Europa League, but their focus on it will mean their league form drops off towards the...
So actually, this might even be a very, very good time to give Unai Emery some credit in regards to this. What an unbelievable season by Aston Villa. To not be back in the summer market, to eventually have to revitalize the same squad every single year, to contend with the disappointment of last season finishing outside of Champions League places on the final day. That's a really, really tough task. And then add to that the very, very difficult start that Aston Villa had towards this season. I think Unai Emery has done such an unbelievable job getting them both into Champions League football via the league and just straight up winning the Europa League as well. What a season for Aston Villa. What a season for Aston Villa fans. Is Unai Emery the best? I mean, he definitely is the best non-Big Six coach in the Premier League, but is he the best coach apart from... I was going to say Pep Guardiola, but Pep Guardiola is leaving. Let me know in the comment section. Is Unai Emery the best coach in the Premier League? I'm actually very curious to see your answers. I think he might be. But as for my prediction for Aston Villa, 8th in the league table, another stinker, 6-1. This is going really, really bad.
End of the season, and they finish in 8th. My number 7, and probably a big surprise to a lot of you, but it shouldn't really be.
Oh no, what am I going to do here?
Probably the single best run club in England right now. It's Brighton. Brighton and Hove Albion. They've done some really, really, really interesting stuff yet again this season, bringing in the likes of Karalampos from Olympiacos, which is a really exciting young Greek striker.
Still looks exciting.
Long-term Danny Welbeck replacement because he does match in a lot of the physical features that Danny Welbeck has. But the real big and exciting signing for Brighton is Maxime de Kuiper from Club Brugge. He is such a great left back. If Fabian Heusler gives him the freedom which he's given him in pre-season and which Nicky Haye from Club Brugge used to give him in the Belgian Pro League, he is going to be an assist and goal machine down that left-hand side. He can overlap, he can cut in, he can create. He's
that'll probably be for next season, I think.
Being coached, being developed in the Brighton setup is also a massive positive for the Belgian national team, who haven't really seen a great left-back in a decade, 2 decades.
With Brighton, I'm one position out. I said they finished 7th, they finished 8th. Massive congratulations, Conference League football for Brighton, so they probably will end up winning that as well. On their transfers, I'm probably not too spot on about just yet, but at the same time, what we have to remind ourselves when it comes to Brighton is that they basically sign 1 year in advance. So a player they will sign this summer probably only gets really integrated and explodes the summer afterwards or the season afterwards. So I think the same could be said for both Karalampos and Maxime de Kuiper, but they haven't been bad and Brighton haven't been bad, so not a bang on prediction, so I can't count that one for me, but at least there's not a stinker being added to the list.
Now, joining Brighton In at number 6 in the Europa League for the season afterwards, I've unfortunately had to say Newcastle United. I've seen
I said unfortunately, and we finished 6 places lower. Oh, this is bad. I mean, let's not go over very, very much trodden ground. If you want to hear about our season and what the conclusions were out of the season, what needs to change, what happened, basically, make sure you head on over back to Monday's episode of the toonTALK podcast where we discussed that in length. But 6th place, 6 places out from where they actually finished. That is bad. That is a really bad prediction. I mean, listen, I probably was looking through rose-tinted glasses because I still was in denial about the whole Alexander Isak situation. We had not signed Woltemade and Wissa, so I did not necessarily know who the strikers were going to be that we were bringing in. I mean, I'm not saying I would have put us much lower if I did know, but I did not think Thiago would be such a good signing, which he very much has been, but our defense has been genuinely shambolic. We dropped 27 points from winning positions, so I mean, we can probably just count our lucky stars that we eventually did end up finishing 12th and not got any sort of real relegation trouble, because this has been a very, very shocking season for Newcastle United. And that makes it 7 stinkers and 100% accurate prediction. And I have a feeling the next one is going to be a stinker as well.
we have a lot of players who are devastating on the break, but a lot of teams can see that, will sit deep against us, and I don't know how we will unlock those deep defenses yet. So I foresee a bit
If
more
I
struggle for us
can
in the coming
predict
season.
this in the summer, why can't our backroom staff, why can't our board?
Position has to be filled by someone, and I think people are sleeping massively on my biggest jump probably ever compared to the season before in a predictions video. In number 5, I've gone with Tottenham Hotspur.
Fifth. Actual fifth. Maybe I should consider a change of career.
Now, back-to-back Champions League qualification for Tottenham Hotspur, this time via the league, would be an absolute massive victory for them. But my reasoning for putting Tottenham one position above us and back into Champions League qualification is twofold. First of all, I think they won't have the injury issues they did have last season.
They absolutely did. They absolutely did. They had worse injuries than last season. What am I on about?
Because, I mean, Ange just is a nutcase in that facet of his game, and their defenders had to cover so
True,
much
but
ground
still.
all of the time, meaning their bodies just probably got fatigued, and that's why a lot of them got injured. Second of all, Thomas Frank.
With confidence, by the way. With absolute and utter confidence, Thomas Frank. That is the reason why they are finishing 12 positions higher than last season. Instead, they finished in the exact same position as last season. So I am 12 positions off. Yeah. This is the single worst stinker in the entire list. And looking at the league table, there's still one more stinker coming. So let's just crack on with Tottenham.
I genuinely believe, after Guardiola, Emery, how he really has a claim to be the 4th best manager in the league.
Oh, shut up. 4th best manager in the league, Thomas Frank. 4th. He's not even a manager in the league anymore. I mean, I still genuinely like Frank. But why was I so hot on him? Why was I so convinced that he was going to be some sort of messiah for this joke of a football club? Yeah. I put Tottenham above Newcastle United. I put Tottenham above Aston Villa and Manchester United. Let's just move on before I'm going to get depressed or worse, fired.
But Kudus, Solanke, and now their links with Savinho, that's a really, really exciting front line if you're a Spurs fan.
It isn't.
I think Tottenham are going to be scary, scary good next season because
They aren't.
over pre-season we already saw a way more defensively astute Tottenham Hotspur than we ever did over the last 2 seasons, and the fact that Frankie has already coached that within them over a month, yeah, I think people are really, really sleeping on Tottenham Hotspur. Thomas.
Just keep on sleeping. Nothing to see here. You've missed absolutely nothing. Just keep on sleeping.
Frankie's such an underrated managerial appointment. But now it is crunch time. The top 4 is here, and my number 4 position is going to be Chelsea.
Back to back stinkers. Newcastle, Spurs, and Chelsea have all had horrendous seasons. I mean, who has actually had the worst season out of these 3? Because Chelsea finished 10th with all of the riches and the money and the spoils and winning every single transfer window. They finished 10th. So that's shocking. I'm 6 places out with that one, so another stinker to add to the tally. I am now on 8 stinkers and 1 perfect prediction. Fantastic. Tottenham finished 17th. They were in a relegation scrap until the last day of the season. And Newcastle finished 12th. And until like game week 36, we could both still finish in Champions League spots and finish in a relegation spot. So who out of these 3 teams, considering resources, considering expectations, has actually had the worst season out of the lot? Please let me know in the comment section below. I genuinely am curious to see, so I will be in those comments probably disagreeing with you. So let's just have a listen to why I thought Chelsea would finish 4th.
Now, Chelsea fans, it could genuinely be higher this season. I don't think it's going to be lower than 4th because you are one of the 4 best teams in the Premier League. And I think this season,
No, they're not.
for the first time, maybe ever, we could see, at least until January, February time, a 4-horse title race, which is absolutely incredible stuff. And Chelsea have impressed massively in the Club World Cup.
That is not necessarily untrue. I do think until December, January period, right until Enzo Maresca got sacked, Chelsea kind of were in and amongst it up there. So maybe, if we're being generous towards me, and I'm not taking away any stinker points or anything, so I'm not going to be too generous, but maybe Chelsea would have actually finished 4th if they did not sack Enzo Maresca. I genuinely think that might be a possibility because, I mean, it just all went to shit after Enzo Maresca left. At the same time, I know Enzo kind of did plea for the sack almost in his last press conference, but still. Would Chelsea have been fine with Enzo Maresca at the wheel? Maybe.
But Chelsea will most likely sign another centre back. The real reason I don't have them any higher
They didn't.
is because I think the squad needs to settle, needs to get to know one another, and then maybe can push for a title next season.
And needs some experience
My
desperately.
number 3, and out of all my picks this video, I think this one is going to get the most hate, and I'm looking forward to it already. I decided to go with Liverpool. Yes, the Liverpool Football Club, who have had...
Interesting! Interesting! Let's just have a listen at my thoughts and my reasoning.
such an amazing window, and who might still be signing Alexander Isak. I've not even got them I've not got them winning the league. I've not even got them finishing 2nd. I've got them finishing 3rd. Now here's my...
They finished
reasoning
5th.
for it. As I said, with Chelsea, I think we're going to get the 4-horse title race for quite a while. But people are acting like this title race is a foregone conclusion with Liverpool. And that's just simply not the case, in my opinion. This is the first time we're going to have to see Arne Slot coach his own team, because he's not just copy and pasting what Jurgen Klopp, his predecessor, already left behind for him. He's going to have to bet in a lot of new signings, a lot of different ways to play and different teams to unlock, different ways to unlock an opposition's team. I'm not saying he's not capable of doing that. I'm just saying we haven't seen him do that. So it's kind of a let's wait and find out. I would really like to know if signing both Weerts and Isaac, I mean, I don't think it was Liverpool's plan. I don't think they went into the summer knowing they would be going in for both. I think it's more so a market opportunity, and what I would like to know then is
Probably
if
agree.
this is a market opportunity born out of some money they had left over somewhere, just in case something happened with one of these two players, or are they allocating funds which they had previously set aside for different targets? Are they now allocating that towards Alexander Isak to pay for him, therefore ignoring those other targets? Because if those other targets are a centre back and a number 6, I think those two are much, much, much more pressing needs than Alexander Isak.
Now, we haven't necessarily seen Liverpool be linked with too many number 6s, but in that centre back role, listen, they probably would have signed Marguerite on deadline day if it weren't for Oliver Glasner's tantrum in the press conference. So maybe there's an argument to be made for the fact that Alexander Isak was not the defining factor in Liverpool signing or not signing a central defender. At the same time, they didn't. They didn't sign that central defender. They signed Giovanni Leone, but first of all, he was 17 when he signed. Second of all, he got injured for the entire season pretty much straight away. And I think leaving it late with a signing like Marguerite on deadline day and then eventually ending up empty-handed just is your own fault. Why leave it so late? And why just have only one option in there? And in January, yes, they agreed a deal to sign Jeremy Jacquet for the next season. So this summer he's coming in. And they've also still got inquiries and scouting reports running on different central defenders. So I do think they will scout and sign one more this summer. But you barely scraped in Champions League football, having spent £400 million, £300 million on attackers alone. It's not been a great season for Liverpool Football Club, has it? And I think I've ended up looking pretty good in this particular segment of the prediction video. Where was this guy when predicting Tottenham's final place, or Manchester United's final place, or Newcastle's final place?
So we've got number 2.
Okay, yeah, so
one.
pretty spot on when it
We'll
comes to
just
Liverpool.
Cut the bullshit, and I'll tell you straight away why. I have got Arsenal winning the league next season. But before I do that, let's talk about City first. City
I mean,
at number 2.
That was a bit too much of a celebration for Arsenal winning the league, probably. But I do have my number 1 and number 2 absolutely spot on in the video. So that's 2 more right at the depth. Meaning I have, shall we call it 7 stinkers and 3 absolutely bang on predictions, and then there's 10 which are respectable. I actually think that's a pretty good result for a predictions video. First of all, let's have a listen to what I said about why Manchester City would not be ending up winning the league and react to that.
In my opinion, Ryan Cherki is a great signing. I know he's a great signing. Tiani Reinders, I really don't like the player, but if he would have gone to any other team in the world apart from Manchester City, I would have hated that transfer a lot more than I do.
I think this is a banging shout. I think to say Reinders is a pretty good player, but would be a decent transfer for Manchester City and a horrible transfer for everybody else is pretty much exactly what we've seen, in my opinion. I think as soon as Pep Guardiola needs something like control, or a player he can rely upon, or energy, I think Tiani Reinders is one of the players he surprisingly looks towards the least, or lastly. And listen, a lot of Premier League fans won't necessarily understand because he started like a house on fire, scoring those 2 goals in his debut. But he, to me, is very much a supplementary player. If you already have a fantastically functioning system with all of the players understanding their roles beginning to front, or front to back, shall we say, then I think adding a box crasher like Tiano Reinders is actually a really good idea, because it gives you another threat, it gives you something or someone that forces your opponents into making decisions as well. But as a signing for a struggling Manchester City that wants to regain the dominance it had, say, 2 years ago, then I don't necessarily like the signing. And I didn't like it in the summer, and I think that's proven to be the case. So I'm actually really, really proud of that prediction.
Cherki is going to absolutely explode this season, in my opinion. I think Jeremy Doku, this is the year where he either takes a step forward towards genuinely starting to contribute to this City attack, or I think they will be looking to move him on next summer.
Again, Ryan Cherki, I said he would explode. Very much did. One of the most exciting footballers to watch in the Premier League. And for Jeremy Doku, I said I thought this would be the season where either he himself gets his output towards a level where it needs to be, which he has, or that he would end up being sold at the end of the season, which I still believe if he didn't have the season he had last season, I think Enzo Maresca would have had him on the chopping block for Manchester City next summer. So all in all, for Manchester City, fantastic prediction.
Let me tell you why. I believe Arsenal Football Club will win next season's Premier League title.
Alright, let's listen.
It has to do with...
By the way, for Arsenal to finish second 3 times in a row, for everybody to speak about bottle job Arsenals, or bottle jobs Arsenal, and for everybody to immediately just hand Liverpool the Premier League winners medal over the summer because of their summer transfer window, I am really proud of this prediction. I am really proud of this top 3, even though Liverpool haven't finished third, they finished 5th. I'm still very, very pleased with Arsenal in first and Manchester City in second, because that's perfectly how it ended up. So predicting the Premier League winner in advance, especially when it's the first time that team wins the Premier League in 22 years, I think I can be pretty proud of that.
Transfer window, and I mean, I know I've just made a whole spiel about why Liverpool's transfer window doesn't necessarily mean that they will be title favorites next season, but I think Liverpool and Arsenal both have had insanely good windows, but
Liverpool replace, Arsenal add,
Liverpool
right?
Only brought in players that are supposed to start week in, week out for their club, whereas Arsenal have brought in Gyökeres, which is a player you expect to start every single week. But apart from that, maybe only Zubimendi is really the starting 11 player, or week in, week out starting 11 player.
Is that true? Who were the other signings? I think Nørgaard, of course not. Hincapié started many games towards the latter half of the season, but that's probably due to Calafiori's injury. Mosquera the same. Eze started a lot of games, probably even bought as a starter, so maybe... Oh, but he hadn't joined at this point,
not
fair enough.
Any scripts, you're not really doing anything all too differently, so players should know what they are getting themselves into. Ødegaard, if he can up his decision-making speed, I think he's going to have so many options in front of him, with possibly Eze, Madueke, Saka, Gyökeres, Havertz, who can crash into the box late. He will have so many options to play through, but the one part of Arsenal's game which I think will cement their place as title favorites is that Rice Zubimendi double pivot. I think that's going to be so unbelievable next season.
Well,
with Zubimendi's game control, he dictates the tempo of a game like... I mean, he is a metronome to the same degree as Rodri is, just with...
I think we've now gotten the gist of my Arsenal prediction. I'm not too unhappy with that midfield shout. The fact that the double pivot of Zubimendi and Rice would eventually go on to win them the league title. I think the reason they stayed in the running for so long is mostly down to that double pivot. I think they complement each other really well, and Zubimendi is even a more attacking presence than I would have thought beforehand, which means they can interchange really nicely with one another. But I also think over the last month of the season, Arsenal looked much, much, much better with Miles Lewis-Kelly in that double pivot along with Declan Rice instead of Zubimendi. So does that mean you have to start either one of them for every single game of the entire season and sell the other one? No, obviously not. There's going to be games that suit Martin Zubimendi better, and there's going to be games that suit Miles Lewis-Kelly better. But it is massively exciting for Arsenal to think of the fact that you have such great options in that double pivot. And I think if you can bring in one more midfielder who has a bit more of a defense first mind, because I don't think sign just a bulldog that will win the ball. Sign someone with a bit more to his skill set, but who primarily defends. Then that midfield roster is genuinely insane. When it comes to my absolutely 100% correct, bang on, spot on predictions, I've got Arsenal winning the league, I've got Manchester City finishing second, and I've got Everton finishing in 13th. When it comes to my absolute stinkers of prediction shouts, I've got the Scum, who are 11 places off where I put them. I've got West Ham, who were not West Ham. I've got Brentford, who were 6 places off where I put them. I've got Bournemouth, who were 5 places off where I put them. I've got Palace, who are 5 places off where I put them. I've got Man United, who are 6 places off where I put them. I've got Aston Villa, who are 4 places behind where I put them. I've got Newcastle, who are 6 places ahead of where I put them. I've got Tottenham, who are 12 places ahead of where I put them. And I have got Chelsea, who are 6 places ahead of where I put them. So, overall, pretty horrendous shouts. Some pretty good shouts in here as well. I think especially my defense of some of the shouts has turned out to be really good, and some of the teams that I only have wrong by about 1 or 2 positions, I gave some pretty good reasoning behind as well. But overall, I'd give this prediction a 3 out of 10. Let me know in the comment section below what you would give me if you would have to grade my predictions for this season. And I will be seeing you back, over the summer with a lot of different videos, but with the next prediction video, maybe I'll predict the World Cup. Maybe. I'll have a think about it. Without any further ado, however, I would like to thank you for watching this video. Please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Head on over to Magpie 24/7 on all of your other social media platforms. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you know the drill. And I would like to see you in the next video. Have a good one.